There we go. Welcome to MetroPlan Orlando's TSMO meeting. I'll call this meeting to order. My name is Brian Sanders, and I'll be chairing the meeting today. The meeting is in person, and it's important for all TSMO members to attend our meetings in person. So all committee members are asked to be present in the MetroPlan board room for us to have a quorum. Members of the public will still be able to participate virtually, and we encourage them to do so. There are two public comment points in the meeting. Members of the public attending in person who want to speak need to fill out a comment form and give it to Lisa. Those attending on Zoom who want to speak can use the raise hand feature on the Zoom screen. We also accept comments by email and phone messages before the meeting. Do you have any comments? At this time, I'll recognize Mr. Eric Hill, MetroPlan staff, for agenda review.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee here in the boardroom and online. I have a few comments this morning, more than I typically give. But the first one I want to just note in the agenda, the next item is the agency report. This is one of the items we've added to the other agendas, and this is the first time it's going to be on our agenda, but it will continue. So I want to just bring everyone's attention to that. Next item is we have just launched our 2024 Regional Transportation Survey, and many of our seasoned members recall that we typically do a survey periodically. And so we are going to open up the survey through Memorial Day weekend, and you will hear a presentation on the results at one of the meetings this summer. There will be a short, there it is right there, where you can go ahead and respond now if you choose. Next item, I want to call your attention to a couple flyers at your place and also over at the table. The first one is a save the date flyer for our Vision Zero Safety Speakers Series. And take advantage of this. I think it's always a great opportunity that we can bring or identify experts from around the country to speak on topics that are important to us, so that we get a chance to hear how these challenges are being dealt with elsewhere and can just expand our thinking on some opportunities to resolve them. Next item, I'm sure everyone's aware that we are doing an electric vehicle readiness study. And as part of this work, we're going to do a series of workshops. So in the handouts, you'll see the list that we have set up and the months that we're going to be having them. So you will be receiving information on the exact date for these workshops, and they are open. So you'll have an opportunity to participate. Next item, Transpo 2024 is a call for abstracts. If anyone is interested in presenting some of their work to your peers here in the state, this is a great opportunity. So please take advantage of it. The next item, I sent out information, I think either 2 weeks ago, on the Operations Academy. This is a program that it's the responsibility shared between ITS America, Federal Highway Administration, and ITE. And this is an opportunity for you to be immersed in TSMO. It is held in Maryland, Ithaca, Maryland, and it is 2 weeks of just TSMO. I mean, if you haven't had enough at work, but it is a great opportunity to not only build your knowledge, but establish a great network. Now, there have been some famous people that have graduated from this academy. Laura Bauk of MetroPlan Orlando, Jeremy Dillmore of Florida DOT, Eric Hill of MetroPlan Orlando, Alex Laffey, Osceola County. So there is a nomination form. We have nominated folks in the past. Some of you have worked with Cheryl Bradley, and she's now the director of TSMO for the Eastern Transportation Coalition. So it is a great opportunity again to just refine and hone your craft that we want to call TSMO. And next, item that everyone in here is really happy to hear about is that we are requesting new retiming intersections. So for those that maintain your signals, reach out to Laura, provide us with the list of intersections or quarters that you want retimed for next year. And then later, not here on our agenda, but at the TAC meeting, you'll be getting an update on the 2050 MTP. I have included, or you should have at your seats, the goals and objectives for the plan. So you'll hear more about this, folks that hang around at TAC meeting from Taylor Laurent on the transportation plan. So, Mr. Chairman, I think I have wasted enough time on your agenda. And now I'd like to turn it over to Mike Wilson for our safety moment.
Thank you, Eric, and good morning, everyone. We've got a two-for this time for safety moment. We're trying to jam a number of topics together in the springtime. So we're talking about distracted driving and seat belts. Our data on distracted driving, you see over 20,000 reported crashes per year in our area involving that, over 600 that involve serious injuries. That's 40% of our serious injury crashes and 44% of our fatal crashes involving distraction. Distraction, of course, is a very broad range of items, and there's a lot of uncertainty within the data. It's difficult often for officers to pin down, for example, the use of a smartphone. So very often it's just distracted other is what shows up in the report. But regardless of what the type is, I like to focus on what are the consequences and what does that mean in cold, hard numbers when it comes to a situation on the road. So I want to think about what does an extra half second of perception and reaction time cost us. So we're heading down the road at 40 miles per hour. And if we had 2 seconds of perception reaction time before our foot hits the brake, we've covered 112 feet. For an extra half second, now we've gone 140 feet, almost an additional 30 feet down the road. So what does this mean if we get to, let's say, a crosswalk where a pedestrian is crossing? Well, that blue car has slowed down to 0, while the car with the extra half second is still doing more than 20 miles per hour at that point. So very small periods of time can have huge consequences. When it comes to unrestrained drivers, use of seatbelts, we have about 80 fatal crashes per year involving either an unrestrained passenger or driver. And that's over half of our fatal crashes. 10 years ago, looking kind of averaging out 2 years from 10 years back, and now it was only 34%. That's on a per capita basis. That's on 120% increase in unrestrained occupant fatalities. So we need to get everybody back into the habit of buckling up. And that concludes my safety moment. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, mea culpa. I'll overlook the agency report. So if we can go back in the agenda to that.
Sure, go ahead.
Ms. Amy Beckman from the FDOT.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to present this month's FDOT report. To start with, I do have 2 very quick updates to the construction report, which you will find in tab 6 of your agenda packet today, that were not ready in time for that report to go out. Both are in Seminole County. The first one is County Road 46A and Reinhardt Road intersection. The update is the contractor is currently working on stabilization and grubbing earthwork, widening work on northbound and southbound Reinhardt Road, widening work on eastbound and westbound County Road 46A, and paving installation of an MOT. The second one is I-4 in the US 1792 interchange. The contractor is currently working on erosion control and maintenance, widening work and paving on the westbound off and on ramps, stabilization barrier wall work and restriping on the eastbound I-4 off ramp, and installation of an MOT. We have 3 recently completed projects, all in Orange County. The intersection project at Cimarron Boulevard and Curry Ford Road, completed in March. The project at Princeton Street from Shell Road to John Young Parkway resurfacing project reached final acceptance at the end of March. And the signal reconstruction project at State Route 438 or Silver Star Road and Powers Drive concluded at the beginning of April. I do have a list of up-to-date lane closures. If you're interested, please see me after the meeting. I'm more than happy to go over those with you. And finally, I do have 3 upcoming events that I wanted to bring to your attention. On Saturday, tomorrow, April 27th from 9:30 to 1, there is the Touch a Truck event at Children's Safety Village going on. FDOT Safety will be attending, and it allows families and children to go through all kinds of different vehicles, including some safety vehicles. So it's a good family event to go to. Additionally, we have Rollin' and Strollin' on Saturday, May 18th from 9:30 to 2 p.m. It is going to be located here in Orlando at 800 Grand Street. It is going to be in partnership with Bike Walk Central Florida. We are going to have pedestrian and cyclist safety information, as well as some equipment to be donated and things of that nature. And finally, we do have our Central Florida Inaugural Safety Summit on Friday, May 17th from 10 to 2 p.m. It is an event to bring together all of our Central Florida partners to celebrate Vision and Target Zero efforts, as well as to unveil the safety strategic plan that we have been working on at FDOT. A summit ticket is required to attend, and there is a cost of $30 for that. It does include both parking at SeaWorld and your lunch. Tickets can be purchased through eventbrite.com. If you're interested, I'm more than happy to get the link to you. And with that, I conclude my report. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Thank you.
And Lisa, now we'll call roll call.
Thank you. I'll ask committee members to turn their microphone only when their name is on, only when their name is called. Thank you. Barden.
Here.
Crandall for Barkessa.
Here.
Brock.
Here.
Carson.
Here.
Colon. Delachey.
Here.
Eid. Elisar. Elliott Moore. Gordon.
Here.
Homayuni. Horn. Hudson. Bayard for Jameson.
Present.
Drej. Krug. Moore for Lim.
Here.
McGrath.
Here.
Mendenhall.
Here.
Price. Pullum.
Here.
Richmond. Sanders.
Here.
Senerans.
Here.
Smith. Tahira.
Here.
Tucson.
Here.
Wetzel.
Here.
Martello for Williams.
Here.
Yeager.
Here.
Yeargain.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes the roll call. We do have a quorum.
I believe Cologne is here. You may, did you get that? All right.
Here.
Okay, very good. All right, very good. We'll now hear public comment on the action items. We ask that you provide your name and address for the record, and please hold your comments to 2 minutes or less. If any members of the public wish to comment and are joining us virtually, please use the raise hand function and you will be recognized, or dial *9 on your phone keypad. We'll send you a prompt to unmute your mic. Do we have anyone joining us virtually?
Mr. Chair, we do not have any hands raised on the virtual side.
Okay, any members of the public in person wish to?
Mr. Chairman, I've received no comment cards.
Okay, written?
None, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, very good then. We'll move on to the action items. We have 4 action items today. Members making or seconding the motion, please state your name. for the first item is the approval of the February 2023 2024 TSMO minutes, which are in tab 1 of your agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Make a motion to approve the minutes, Ramon Centerens.
Okay, very good.
Second, LSR.
Second, LSR. We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, motion pass. Our next action item is a request for staff approval of the organizational public participation plan. More information can be found in tab 2 of your agenda packet. Miss Marianne Horn is here and you're recognized. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Committee. My name is Marianne Horn, and I am the Community Outreach Strategist here at Metro Plan Orlando. I'm coming to you today with one presentation that involves 2 recommendations that I'm asking you to recommend approval for 2 separate public participation plans. We have 2 plans here with aligned goals, but slightly separate missions. The first is our 2024 organizational public participation plan. And that's the overall plan that guides our entire organization, sets out our overarching goals for how we reach out to people in Central Florida about transportation planning, and discusses some of the strategies and means that we bring them into the process. This is renewed every few years. It also guides all of our other plans as far as public participation. Then we have the 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan public participation piece, and that is specific to the upcoming Metropolitan Transportation Plan. And you've been hearing a lot about the MTP, and you're going to hear more about the MTP, but this is a plan that helps us talk about how the public will hear about the MTP. And so that has a very specific mission, happens in a defined period of time, comes in under the organizational plan. They each need your recommendation to the board for approval. The public comment for both of these has run concurrently. Federal requirements are for a 45-day period. We will have exceeded that by the time we close our comment period on May the 10th. We have received comments, which you have in your packets attached to the fact sheets pertaining to these plans. And I have separated them as best I could according to whether the person was commenting on the organizational plan or the MTP plan. Some were not entirely clear, but you do see that we engage the public even in commenting about how we engage the public. So we're happy about that. We have had this posted on our website. Both plans are available on the public participation plan page that is within metroplanorlando.gov. Also, we have promoted it through social media and with emails to our some 5,000 subscribers to our email list. So we are happy to see that people responded to that and hope that they will continue to respond. These are a couple of the graphic images that we use to draw people in. The way we do this is we review our previous plans and performance measures, and we use that as the baseline when we begin to update the plans. In this case, our last public participation plan, the organizational plan, was updated in 2019. And I believe we all remember what happened right after that. Public participation for this organization changed dramatically because of the pandemic. And we learned a lot of new skills and we learned a lot of new tools. And we want to continue to leverage those. So as we update this time, we have acknowledged that digital participation is now a thing, and we are going to embrace that fully. We last updated the MTP public participation plan, of course, when we did the last MTP, which was 2045, about the same time, slightly after that public participation plan update in 2021. To do this, we also review the latest in federal government guidance, in this case, the Promising Practices for Meaningful Public Involvement in Transportation Decision-Making, which came out last year. And we look at other people's plans to see if there's anything that we might borrow or emulate or look at as a best practice that we could adopt. So our overarching themes here, fairly simple: balance in-person and virtual engagement to leverage the advantages of each, because each of them has definite strengths and we want to use them both. Include strategies that reach the underserved communities. Those are the people who don't have as many transportation opportunities. You've been hearing some more about this on our separate Transportation for All plan. And then just expand our partnerships, because we find that in this time when people are being bombarded with information, the very best way to get through is through a trusted community partner. And we've been successful in bringing in some groups that are helping spread our message, people in the health community, people in the nonprofit world, and these partners are very, very valuable. So I'm going to give you just a little bit more on each individual plan. Then again, as I said, you'll vote on each of them individually. So the organizational plan is really guided by two large goals. And one is to encourage two-way communication, because if you're just talking at people, you are not really communicating, you're posting. We want people to talk back to us. And that's really where, you know, the hard work of public outreach comes. We also want to consistently make sure that people who don't regularly have a voice in transportation planning are able to engage in our process. And again, as I was talking about, we've been looking at a lot of strategies for that. You'll see more of that in each of the plans. Then the 2050 MTP, again, this plan has a slightly different mission. It's totally aligned with the organizational plan, but it has to happen in a different way. This outreach over a defined period of time has to be very robust while still being inclusive. And we use a digital presence heavily here because you can reach a lot more people, sometimes using the digital tools. This public input that we get immediately, we will get public input at every contact that we have and share that with decision makers. That's you. You are the decision maker, and you'll be hearing more from us throughout the MTP process about what we're hearing from people in the community. And then engagement with a diverse group of stakeholders. And here's where we really need your help. You see this sunny yellow sheet that appears at your places. You can pick it up now if you want and take a look if you haven't already. This is where we are asking you to give us a head start from your group of contacts or your knowledge of the community and help us reach out. All we really want from you here, it's an easy ask. We just want you to put your name on it, tell us which committee you're on. We're asking all committees and the board members to do this for us. And then think about groups, people in your sphere, personal and professional, who might not hear from us, and tell us who they are. Write the name of that group down for us. If you have a contact there, you can just circle yes. We'll come back to you. We can find you. We'll come back to you and ask you who that contact is. If you don't have a contact, that's just fine too. Just throw it out there like, yes, we have, there's a group in our community that's very active. I think their name is this. Don't know much more, but check it out. And we'll follow up as best we can. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to think about that. I don't want you to lose this. This is my big ask of you today. Thank you. So now I can take any questions, comments that you have, and then Mr. Chair, we'll proceed with the vote.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Any questions, comments? I read through the plan, looks very good. What I didn't see in there was an emphasis on hitting that mute button when we want to talk virtually. So after 4 years, we're all still doing that, including myself. So really appreciate all the work that you've done.
Thank you.
So there's two action items.
Two action items. There we go. The first action item, organizational public participation plan. Tongue twister. Do we have a motion for approval? Wonderful. Do I hear a second?
Second, Ramon Centerings.
Very good. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. That's number one. How about number two? The 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan Public Participation Plan. Do I have a motion for approval?
Motion for approval.
Very good. Great. Second?
Second, Bone Center's.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Committee, you will be hearing more from us. Thank you.
When can we turn these back in? If we don't do it today? Just next meeting?
Yes, if you do it today, you can just leave them at your places and we will collect them. If you want to take it back and think about it a little more, you can bring them back to your next meeting, or you can take a picture of it and email it to me, or you can email it to Eric and he'll send it to me. Any of that works. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Our final item is a request from staff for approval of the fiscal year 25-26 Unified Public Work Plan Program. Information on this item is in tab 4 of your agenda. As noted, this item is linked with item 7B in our agenda. Mr. Alex Trauger is here to present this information. Go ahead, Alex.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So yes, we are here today requesting your approval of our Unified Planning Work Program. And as I've talked about, that is federal code for our annual operating budget. This is my third presentation to the advisory committees as well as our board. And we're at this important juncture in the process where we need to submit this in time to comply with state statutes. So we'll be asking approval from our governing board at their upcoming meeting on May 8th to submit that document in time to DOT on the 15th. So again, today we are asking for your approval. At your last meeting, we did present a draft. At the prior to that, a preview. But as it relates to the final document versus the draft document, what changed? Very little as it relates to substance, what we're actually going to be doing as an organization. You know, as specific to this TSMO advisory committee, no change as it relates to kind of our retiming program, the funds committed to that, as well as the before and after, as well as our data analytics program, which supports some of your other analyses. But what did change are some funding types. So within the draft, in between the final, we had some changes in totals between our PL, which is our federal planning funds, mostly because our board deobligated at our board's last meeting. They deobligated or unencumbered funds from our current year budget. Those funds are rolling in. So the new funds that you'll see, the difference here includes those funds that our board already took action on last month. We also moved the funding types around to be as flexible as possible to deliver the services. In some cases, it's better to fund certain tasks with local funds because we can utilize those funds a little bit differently than the federal funds. A lot of strings attached to those. Other changes to the document, a couple new appendices added. One is the District 5 planning activities. That's a required aspect of the UPWP that was provided from the department. So that's included, as well as their comments on our UPWP, on the draft document and our responses, how we addressed their feedback. And we were able to satisfy all of their comments and put together a document that meets all of the federal requirements. So what you see here, current year budget, as you can see, pretty significantly higher than normal. That's all the SS4A funds that we received, as well as the local funds that we're contributing to that. But as we get into fiscal 25 and going into fiscal 26, pretty typical funding for those years for our operating budget. As I mentioned, though, our board did deobligate about $1 million from last year that rolls into fiscal 25. So that's really where you see that 9.8 increase in the difference between our second year, but pretty typical for the first year to be a little bit higher than the second year. Our budget also includes pass-through to links. About 5% of our planning funds received from the Federal Highway Administration go directly to links for their strategic planning activities. Similarly, you'll see an increase in their PL or their consolidated planning grant. They deobligated about $150,000 that rolled over into their budget, but their 350 is the typical amount there. not in the Unified Planning Work Program, but important to call attention to the $7 million a year, which is our board's TMA policy to pass those funds to Lynx through the Transportation Improvement Program to support Lynx's eligible capital expenses, so buying buses, shelters, other eligible capital expenses. So that's also encapsulated within and required to be in the Unified Planning Work Program. Again, this is the third presentation that I've had to you, and today we are requesting your recommendation of approval of this, so we'll be taking it to our board at May 8th. Do my best to answer any questions you have, but we are looking for a motion. Thank you.
Do we have any questions for Alex on this item? No, seeing none. Do we have a motion for approval?
Motion to approve, Lasar.
Very good. And do I hear a second? Very good. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passed. Okay, we have two presentations and we'll hold the questions to the end. Next up is Eric Hill. Eric's going to present the TSMO master plan.
Good morning again, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. This is the final presentation for our but TSMO master plan. I gave a presentation at our last meeting, and at that meeting, I indicated that I'll come back at least with a list of the top projects for each of the jurisdictions. So we've completed all the reports for this master plan. They are on our website, and we ask that you go ahead and take a review of these documents and provide us with comments by May 10th. Now that's like starting at the end, and now I'm going to start at the beginning because I'm going to come back to that. So this has been in development since spring of 2022. The initial schedule had us completed at the end of last year. But some changes in the scope and some of the things we wanted to get done per our steering committee has caused us to extend the project itself. So we've had 7 meetings, have 9 agencies that represent the steering committee. I mentioned the documents that we already have in draft. I also want to recognize Mr. Jim Wood, who's with Kimberly Horn. He's the project manager. So this master plan is going to roll into our MTP. It's one of the modal plans that we have, that we're completing, that gonna support the MTP and what we see for the future of our region. The vision, again, we want to leverage information communication technology, improve mobility, reliability, and safety of our transportation network. The goals are the goals that were in our last MTP. These are pretty much aligned with the 2050 MTP. You'll see that there's been some wordsmithing, but these are still the goals that we are going to be trying to achieve. So this is the process. Again, I believe you've heard this from me a couple times, but in essence, we just combed the literature within our region on what is happening with TSMO to identify the gaps. And that's where we wanted to start with just trying to address the gaps. But again, as this evolved, we start to see that there's some opportunities for us to leverage what's already been invested. So one of the portion of the gaps was not just the projects themselves, but the institutions and where there are some shortcomings there. Now, as we all evolve and become more seasoned, we start to lose that institutional knowledge at some of these agencies. And so developing a workforce, training, these are some of the things we identified. Just telling the story of TSMO back home to get our leadership to recognize and accept it as another opportunity for us to improve transportation in the region. We defined the principal strategies. We identified some funding opportunities, which not that much different than what we currently have. That's been like the spoiler alert. There are some federal opportunities that we want to try and take advantage of, but in terms of the funding opportunities, not much has really changed here. We developed a methodology for prioritizing these projects that we've used not only for the GAP projects, but for what we call the advanced ITS projects. And part of that, this evolution in this project has been looking at how we can improve or use TSMO strategies at intersections. So wanted to address that as well. And then lastly, this is going to change. And so we wanted to look at what else we can do, the path forward, what else we can do, what can we expect and try and use in our program. So again, project categories, we want to address the gaps, we want to leverage investments that are already there, and then the intersections. So the next few slides are the projects, the top projects for the jurisdictions. Again, I will show you those for the gaps as well as those for those that we consider we're leveraging opportunities, but then also the intersections. So starting with Seminole County, you see the top projects on the top, the gap projects, and at the lower end are the projects that we believe there's already some infrastructure there, there's already investments being made, but how can we just make that blossom, if you will? This is Osceola County. And this is Orange County. Now, Orange County chose to do their projects through bundling. And so I'll give you just one good example is number B under the gap. You see those dots along Interstate 4. Those are interchanges that Orange County wanted to bundle together, get them done. So that was the approach they asked us to take, and we wanted to be responsible. And this is the city of Orlando. Now, these are the top projects. Now, when you look at the documents, you'll see the list, but we just wanted to give you a flavor of some of the projects that we have. In the intersections, I showed you this at the last meeting. It hasn't changed, but the ask was if we could look at 20 intersections around the region, and we allocated those based on traffic signals. That's how we do our allocation of funds, based on the intersections, or excuse me, traffic signals that are being maintained by the jurisdictions. Now, the path forward, what are regional strategies that we can try and adopt? You've heard me say that there's high-end technology and low-end technology. I think the low-end technology is one of those opportunities where we can put out some strategies that impacts us all, but we can all use to move forward. Future considerations, there is some synergy with our active transportation plan because it's corridor-based, and we want to take a corridor-based approach in this plan as well as our MTP. And so on what corridors where we see some strategies that will support the active transportation plan that could mirror some TSMO projects and vice versa. We also see this master plan is supporting the Vision Zero of Central Florida effort. And then the last one, I describe that as a wild card because who knows what AI will do for not only society, but especially in transportation. But that is emerging. It's already here. But how can we take advantage of it? And what can we expect? I think there's a risk, and we want to try and contain that risk. So again, the beginning of this, I started with the end, and now I'm at the end. And here are the list of documents that are on our website. I think everyone will probably be well served by reading the summary document. However, if you want to delve a little bit more deeper, go into the appendices. I think each of them are pretty easy reads. The regional ITS architecture is schematics and designs and diagrams. So, have at it if you will. But otherwise, it's pretty straightforward. And again, I think I will just go ahead and say I've done a wonderful job of presenting this information to you so you don't have to read any of these documents. but I don't think that's the case. So, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my presentation, and we'll respond to any questions.
Eric, you always do a wonderful job putting things together. So appreciate all your efforts there. Any committee members have any questions, comments? Very good, very good. Thank you, Eric.
See, I was right.
Yeah, you were right. Again. Okay, next up, we have Mr. David Williams from VHB. He's going to give us a presentation on the FDOT Regional Integrated Corridor Management System. David, you're recognized. Go ahead. Push your button. Go ahead and push your button. There we go.
Yep, sorry. So as the chair mentioned, I'm going to be discussing the Regional Integrated Corridor Management System. That is a bundle software package that helps the DOT and local partner agencies. Gives the DOT and the partner agencies the ability to treat transportation as a single system, increase the operational efficiency of the whole transportation network, and maximize all the investments we make along the corridor. So here are the topics we'll be covering. I'll give a brief overview of the RICMS as a whole, and then we'll dive into one of the main components of the RICMS. So here is a brief overview of the RICMS components. As I mentioned, it's a collaboration across the full network, and I'll show you the actual extent of the RICMS network in a second. And it to help us respond to events with all the data available to us in the region and all the various systems integrated into that system. And so a couple of the major components is this decision support system you see here. This DSS, it evaluates and recommends optimal responses to various events that happen along the I-4 corridor. And then it's enabled by this predictive model that can predict traffic up to 30 minutes in the future to identify the best diversion route and response to a given congestion event. That's going to be the focus of our presentation this morning. The last item there is the signal optimization tool, which determines which signals are farthest from being optimized and allows for us to run optimization on those signals. So the crux of the RICMS is within 30 minutes, the RICMS system as a whole can analyze an incident, predict traffic behavior up to 30 minutes in advance, and provide the most efficient alternative route to divert traffic around a major incident along the I-4 corridor. All right, and so by doing that, or one of the key features of the RICMS is the diversion routes that are predefined, developed by the department and by its local agency partners for each area that the diversion route is within. So in this case, you see here a few diversion routes in the Sanford area up in Seminole County. Excuse me. So as part of the RICMS, every section of the I-4 corridor is analyzed, and those diversion routes are developed and reviewed, evaluated by stakeholders involved. And it also pulls in various amounts of data, and I'll show you some of those data sources in a second. The DSS, the decision support system that I mentioned earlier, it pulls in all that data and various diversion routes in a diversion route database that we have, and assesses real-time traffic conditions and determines the best potential diversion route, proposes it to operators who then carry it forward to local agencies to approve, and then that diversion route is implemented, and then traffic is diverted onto one of these diversion routes you see here as an example. All right, so a little bit in the weeds, hopefully not too far. So here's a quick overview of how the planning model, or the mesoscopic model, was developed. That's the engine behind the RICMS. It does a lot of the data analysis and integration. So the first step in developing the model was pulling in the CFRPM, the Central Florida Regional Planning Model. That gives us the typical 24-hour traffic model. And from there, the 24-hour demands were expanded through AI and data clustering. I'll speak a little more on the data clustering in a second. And they generated a 24/7, 365-day model. And that can allow us to do a lot more local operational analyses. And as you see there, all the different data sources it looks into signals, ramps, tolls, detection, things like that. And then from there, the model is integrated with real-time data, like I mentioned. And then the model uses live detection data that is cleaned and moved through a quality assurance process with another software program. And that data is then implemented back or integrated back into the RICMS. And from there, it gets its decision support system, it gets the predictions, and we can actually see some movement in the RICMS. So here is an architectural view of the same graphic you see on the right side of the screen. And so here's the model boundary. So as you see, it covers most of the Greater Orlando area, all the way down to the Celebration area in the south, all the way north to around DeBerry, DeLand in the north, and then it's bounded on the east and west by 429 and 417. So the model, quickly going into a couple elements of the model. The first up is the cluster analysis I mentioned earlier. So taking 2022 historical data, the model identified 13 different clusters. Each cluster has a similar traffic pattern. And so you can see that if you look on the graphic there. So the far right column is Sundays. And as you see, most of those are generally dark green. And then if you look in the Monday, obviously Monday's a different time of a day of the week. It's obviously a work day. But when you see those dark green elements cells on the Monday column, those are your holidays. So people treat those like they would a standard Sunday. So their travel patterns obviously differ when they're on a holiday. So that's one element of the RICMS model, predictive model, is data clustering. And so, like I mentioned, this was last updated in 2022. Each pattern corresponds to a similar set of traffic patterns. And the key about this for the group is that this tool allows analysis from any one of these clusters, and some interesting stuff I can describe at the end. Another aspect of the RICMS predictive model is the geometry effort that was involved to develop the model. So coming from the CFRPM, which is just a basic network, they had to update it or add some greater context to the model by including geometry. As you see there, they to help with the operational analysis, they had to include some geometries. So that included interchanges, intersection details, express lanes. And this was first developed in 2018, obviously before the I-4 Express came into being. But since then, they have updated it to include the I-4 Express lanes. All right. Another element of the predictive model is the signals that it's pulling in. As you see on the map there, those are all the signals that are pulled into the data or pulled into the model using real-time traffic data. And where the connection to the signal database is through the RICMS means that the model is able to import updated plans periodically without the need of a full manual process. So they're pulling in live data and using that live data to feed into the model to make up to 5-minute predictions on traffic, 30 minutes ahead. All right, and then finally the model is calibrated using with traffic flows, traffic behaviors, travel times, and speeds. The model was originally developed in 2018, and obviously we've had a couple things change since then. I-4 Ultimate came into being, as well as COVID-19 happened. So they're currently updating the model through 2024 to cover up to our period of time today. All right, and so what are the benefits of this to TSMO? So the model itself allows us to go a step deeper than your standard regional planning model. So it's a vehicle-based model, and it's currently used as part of the signal optimization tool. So it's capable of evaluating the effects of TSMO-based projects that involve more operational strategies such as retiming and other implementations. These evaluations can be done either in the native software platform or through the RICMS AIMSUN Live user interface. So there are future enhancements that may allow for sub-area selection. Being a vehicle-based simulation also allows for more granular and detailed key performance indicators, KPIs, that allow for an enhanced level of evaluation. So this is available as a planning resource for folks if you're interested in evaluating potential projects that you're looking at. To get any training on this tool, please reach out to myself or to someone from the DOT team, and we'll get you some training on that. The core software is available either through remote desktop or installation on the local machine. But there is also a graphical user interface for evaluation on a web-based user interface. So I know that was a lot of material, a little technical. So if y'all have any questions, please let me know.
Well, that was very interesting, David. Does any of the members have questions about it? Yes, go ahead.
Question. Has the model been tested like in a real life situation? I mean, something happened on I-4 and with the detour this way, and has it been tested?
Yes, it's in active use right now.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And who's managing the program?
So it's run from the department's regional traffic management center over in Sanford. So the operators see an incident and coordinate or use the RICMS platform to identify potential responses to those congestion events, and then they'll coordinate with the local agency responsible for that area. And then based on their approval, an action or a response will be implemented, and then diverting traffic, hopefully moving traffic cleanly through the local arterial network and back onto the interstate when.
Okay,
Yes,
excellent. Thank you.
Any others? Yes, go ahead.
For the diversion routes, I know that you're saying that they would go to the local agency to then try to divert traffic. Is there any research or plan to have it just go out to navigation providers, where if you see something like, how is that diversion route getting to that driver? If we only have 30 minutes, it might be very hard to get up and set an MOT or try to divert traffic in that short period of time.
So I know we utilize dynamic message signs on the interstate, and I believe it's also, but I don't want to speak out of turn.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Dilmore, TSMO Program Engineer for FDOT District 5. Sorry if you don't know me. All right, so what's going on with navigation providers? We send them information about what the roadway conditions are. We do that normally. We do that every day. That's a normal course of business. When it comes to the optimization of detour routes, they want to do that using their own algorithms. We've gone ahead and been working on some pilots with navigation providers and actually with their back-end software developers that have not released things for production yet, to let them know when we're changing traffic signal timing. When we first started the RICMS effort, we actually had a meeting with them and asked them if they'd like to receive that data. They told us go pound sand. They are now interested in receiving it, but we understand they're not using it in their algorithm yet. So they're still trying to look on the back end side of things. And it seems like quite a bit of their interest is actually trying to develop products to sell to us, to tell us how to optimize our traffic signal timing, which we've also taken a look at. And I'll tell you, it's interesting what's recommended. That's a fun well, but those providers, I think it's still a work in progress to get us to a point where we would be making changes that are 100% in step with one another. They have recently also offered up an API to tell us what they're telling drivers to do. So we've been trying to look at is marrying the concept of our routes that we think people will want to use or we think are most appropriate for people to use versus what they're recommending. Sometimes I'll say that there are conflicts because they're more likely to use like neighborhood streets, which we will not do. So there are some gaps that do exist. We're just trying to right now, I think, feel each other out, understand each other's gaps. But there's not really we're going to take a unified response to the conditions at this point. Hopefully that makes some sense.
Okay, yeah, sometimes it's go ahead, Kelly.
Just to confirm, it's only looking at vehicle optimization. There's no multimodal aspect to this, such as impacted transit operation because of the diversion, how that might impact.
So
region
it does
transit.
take into its data feed, all the available data in the region, including transit options, I believe, as well.
Question, Brian. Hey, David. Thanks for the presentation. So real quick, how long has the ICMS been using predictive analytics? How long has that portion of it been in place?
About 5 years since
Yeah,
around
that's been in
2018.
5 years. And what are the performance measures of that look like? Like how well is that predictive analytics?
I'll jump into this. All right, so the MOC that we basically are trying to optimize for has to do with like system delay. And system delay is looked at by a variable kind of boundary condition. So when we go ahead and look at where the area of influence would be, we go a certain distance on either side in order to sum up the delay within the system as a whole. If you're talking about the calibration side of things, we have volume data and we have travel time data that it's being used to compare its prediction against in order to handle calibration going out. But the OD is a little bit more static.
Just another way of asking the question, how well is it working? I mean,
Yeah, so when we looked at trying to say how well it was working, the purpose of its implementation, right, was to understand, could we see the effects of, should we implement an alternative route strategy or not? So we went ahead and compared that against like single lane closures and double lane closures. And what we saw was we could see resolution in that model for those types of behaviors. When we would look at things like disabled vehicles and the impact that may have on the roadside, I hate to tell you this, it's not that good. So when it comes down to it, it gives us the resolution to understand limited access facilities, single and double lane closures, but not to the effect of capturing the very minute behaviors that happen with friction along the roadside. It's not an exact number, Brian, but it's kind of an order of magnitude. If that's really, I think, how we're able to characterize its effectiveness. Hopefully that makes sense to you.
generated from the system?
So what we are using it for primarily, because we only know one outcome, right, which is the action that we took. So we've really looked at the key benefit associated with it was when we tried to look at what the benefit to cost ratio was for our implementation of integrated corridor management as a whole. It's really a theoretical exercise, right? So when we tried to run this through manual calculation, we went through a set of assumptions, and one set said we had a benefit to cost ratio of about 3 to 1. We went ahead and said, well, that's reasonable. Let's go ahead and look at a different set of assumptions that a different engineering firm came up with. And it came out with like 24 to 1. Like, that's a huge stinking swing. How do you justify this? So what we've been able to do is by using ones that are less dependent on assumptions and more based upon standard engineering practice, that again is looking at how well it's working every 15 minutes, able to go ahead and more accurately quantify what the benefit cost ratio is to the program as a whole, which we saw was higher than the 3 to 1, but much less than the 26 to 1, more around the 8 to 1 to 10 to 1 ratio. So we've been able to see that kind of resolution by using the model results. So I don't know if that answered the question or not. Okay, cool.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Sorry, I get overly detailed and things. Apologize, guys.
And sorry, one final shameless plug. CFLsmartroads.com is the District 5 traffic operations website, and it includes a button on there for the ICM. If you click on that, you can find a lot of details on the RCMS, on the performance measures that we have that the operations team outputs quarterly, I believe.
Very good, very good. Well, thank you, David. Thank you, Jeremy, for stepping in also. Yes, being diverted is sometimes an adventure. I often, on 75, every time I'm on 75, it seems like I'm being diverted through Ocala and people are looking and I wish we really had a more deliberate system in place to, receive, us wayward travelers. It's a good way to see parts of the country you probably didn't think you were gonna see, but it's just where we're at today. So, appreciate all the conversation on that. We do have some common presentations and reports. With the TAG meeting, those are available. I encourage you to stay for TAC to see those. There's a Vision Zero update, the 2050 MTP status update, the active transportation plan, and TSMO master plan. There is also general information under tab 5. There's quite a bit in that. In terms of upcoming meetings, the MPO board is going to meet on May 8th, and TSMO will be back on May 31st.
That's correct. It's May 31st.
It is.
Okay, the sheet's right.
Yeah.
Let's see. Any final comments from committee members? I'm seeing none. So let's remind the virtual viewers, if you'd like to be recognized and make a comment, you can do the raise hand or the dial *9. Do we have anybody virtual that would like to make a final comment?
Mr. Chair, I do not see any hands raised on the virtual side.
Okay, any members of the public at present?
Mr. Chairman, we have received no comments.
Okay. And I assume you haven't received any written in the last few minutes.
I have not. Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
very good, very good. Well, at this time, if there's no further business, this meeting stands adjourned. Thank you.
Good job, Mr. Chairman.
We're rolling.
I apologize for not getting the,